I'm Steve Morgan, president of the University of La Verne, and on behalf of the entire University of Community, it's my pleasure to welcome you here this morning as we name this building in memory of Skip Mainiero. There's an old song that was written, I think, back in the mid-40s or early 40s, right at wartime, about I want a La Verne man. And it said we did not come to college to stuff our head with knowledge. We came with a definite plan to get a La Verne man. Now that's probably not politically correct nowadays, but that's the way they thought after World War II. You have to remember the circumstances and the timing. I want a La Verne man to make all my dreams come true. Please be my La Verne man. Won't you, or you, or you? Well, I think Skip Mainiero was the epitome of the La Verne man. Some descriptions of Skip. Skip was a perfectionist, never satisfied until whatever he was doing was done perfectly, thoroughly. He was probably the most thorough person I have ever worked with. There were very few things that ever fell through the cracks with Skip. And Skip was the ultimate extrovert. He loved everyone, and he greeted them as if they were his long-lost friends. And Skip found out things about people that I would never find out because they had confidence that they could talk with him. And he'd tell me some of those things, and I'd wonder how in the world he found out that they had confidence, that here was a friend. And sometimes they weren't people who knew him very well, but they knew here was someone who listened, and here was someone who cared. Skip was born to teach. And he convinced me that teaching is mostly art. I really don't think you learn to teach. You're either a teacher or you're not. You can improve upon that. But whether he was in the classroom, where he was always rated with the highest of ratings, or whether he was in the Board of Trustees room, or whether he was before the University Council, he was the consummate teacher. Skip loved ULV, and he loved all of its people. He participated in some labors of love on this campus to honor others. He put hours and hours into the Hannah Walt Center. He put enormous time and effort into Ortmeyer Stadium and to Blickenstaff Pavilion. Skip was also a super salesperson. He sold Sallie Mae on issuing $17.5 million worth of bonds to this little school in La Verne. He convinced Moody's that we should have a investment grade rating, unusual for a school with the size of our endowment. But he convinced them that he had a firm hand on the finances of this institution and that we were a very good risk. All of us from time to time were probably victims of Skip's super salesmanship. And even though we knew the facts, we accepted what he said to us. He could convince the faculty that this wasn't the year for those raises, or the deans that, no, we really don't have the money, and they knew he probably did. But they said, okay, we'll agree with you. Skip was a benchmark by which all of us can judge our performance, whether we're teachers or administrators or classified personnel or members of the Board of Trustees. If we could achieve the kind of excellence that he achieved in what he did, we will be successful. He was a 1 in a million. I remember going to the Board of Trustees and saying, we need a vice president for finance. We need a president. He could have done that. We all knew he could have done that. And that's what made us so successful as a team. He knew what I thought. I knew what he thought. He could speak for me. He could do what I did very well. No question about that. I wanted to clone him and put him in a variety of positions because he was so successful. He was a utility player. And I remember when I went to the executive committee, and I said, there's a guy who heads the education department. He's a teacher. I'd like him to be the next vice president for finance and administration. And the executive committee didn't know him very well. And they said, well, what does an education department chair know about finance? And they bantered about for a while and questioned this, and I finally said, listen, give him 6 months. And if you don't think at the end of 6 months that he's the finest vice president for finance and administration in the country, we'll search for someone else. I think it was probably within the first 3 or 4 weeks that they began to say, I think this guy can do the job. And the rest is history. Skip's memory gives many of us a lot of energy to grow and to improve in everything that we do, to spend more time with the people we love, and to stretch La Verne as far as it can go as an institution. It was Tom McGuire from the Education Department who came to me one day and said, we have an idea. We'd like to name the Science and Education Building in memory of Skip. And I thought, what a perfect idea. That's the building. That was his home. He was a teacher above all, and he spent years in that home. And he loved the people in it, and he loved his time in it. And so I took the proposal to the Board of Trustees, and Skip would be glad to know it was a unanimous decision to name this building in his memory. And I'd like to invite Tom McGuire to the platform now to say a few words.
As indicated in your program, I am speaking today for the members of the ULV Education Department, a group with whom Skip had a long, successful, and enjoyable association. And although the remarks I am making are mostly my own, I think that the department members and many others on this campus would say the same. Back in 1975, when I arrived at ULV, there was a self-awareness exercise that we used in the teacher education classes that consisted of a student taking their name and then generating, for each of the letters of their name, a word that they felt characterized them. I would like to do that with Skip Mainiero. Beginning with S, I would certainly use supportive. He always found time to talk, he always asked great questions, but he was always positive and helpful. In those instances when I had taken an action that he could not support, he was perfectly willing to help me, if I wished, generate a solution that both of us could live with. K. Webster defines kind as of a friendly, generous, or warm-hearted nature. Perfect. I. What better than inventive? In a period of lean times financially for ULV programs, Skip became terrific at finding funds. From selling Christmas trees to landing federally funded projects, he was always coming up with ways to generate resources to help us build a better program. P. Professional. Looked, acted, talked, taught, administered as the consummate professional that he was. M. Easy one. Mathematician. I had the impression that he had had a long love affair with mathematics from his own school days to his early teaching days in Ontario Montclair, to teaching the elementary math concepts class here, to helping his student teachers make sense of math concepts for their 6th graders, to making sense out of the ULV budget. A, another easy one, admired. He left the education department 7 years ago. Yet when I travel to meetings statewide of education groups and organizations, people recall him and always make some comments about the pleasure they had in knowing him, working with him, and the consummate professional they also knew him to be. I, intuitive. It seems that some people just seem to lack intuitive appropriateness. Others seem intuitively inappropriate. Skip was intuitively appropriate. At meetings, for example, both large and small, he always seemed to know just what needed to be said at just the right time. N, nurturing. I have heard so many people mention how Skip had encouraged or mentored them. I realize now that when he gave me the opportunity to administer our federal Teacher Corps project and our state math teacher retraining project, he was probably mentoring me and I didn't even know it. I. Webster defines innocent as candid, straightforward, honest. In discussions, he always got to the point quickly, carried no hidden agendas. What you saw and heard was what you got. E, enthusiastic, especially about ULV, and it showed in everything he did here. R, responsive, always listened, always gave good feedback, had a knack for making you feel as though your ideas had merit. O, out of sight maybe, but definitely not out of mind. What legacy did Skip leave us? I think a striving for excellence. What is excellence? I'm reminded of former Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart in the midst of an acrimonious debate on the issue of pornography. He was asked how he would define it, and he replied, "I can't define it, I just know it when I see it." I would say much the same about excellence. Hard to define, but its presence is hard to miss. And to me at ULV, it was present in everything associated with Skip Mainiero. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. And now I'd like to call on Nancy Mainiero to say a few words. It's a pleasure to have the family here, to have Nancy here, and Rick, and Andy, and Lisa, and Skip's pride and joy, his granddaughter, with whom he would like to have spent much more time. Nancy?
Well, La Verne has always been a special place for our family, and it really was where it all started. It's where Skip and I met. It's where we chose to be life partners, and it was where we started dreaming about our little family. During those first few years when we were here, it was La Verne College that helped Skip find out who he really was and what he really wanted to do in life. He loved the caring spirit at La Verne College, and it was this spirit that he dedicated his life to be a part of and to share with others. Our family is truly touched by this tribute that you're giving him today, and we really want to thank you from the bottom of our heart.
And now we dedicate this building to Skip's memory. There is a plaque inside, and I would invite you to file in these doors and view that plaque. And when you pass this building and see the name, think of our friend.
A touch of magic died today. He came to us in gentle ways. He loved to laugh, to work and play. A touch of magic died today. Oh, Skip, how we all loved you. A touch of magic died today. A touch of magic died today and never again will come our way.